Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply cynical, but honestly, utterly fascinating look at where the automotive industry is heading as we barrel toward the year 2026. We'll be drawing on some brilliant, highly provocative commentary from a creator who spent decades in the motoring world. And we're going to explore why our relentless push for automotive progress might actually feel a bit more like, well, a slow motion car crash. So let's just get right into it. The source material kicks off with this incredibly striking quote, and it hits the nail right on the head. We all kind of expected the future of motoring to be this seamless sci-fi utopia filled with perfect solutions, right? But instead, the reality of automotive progress feels frustratingly chaotic. The future just rolls up, asks you to update your software, everything grinds to a desperate halt, and you're left sitting there wondering if we're actually moving forward at all. Here is the game plan for today. We're going to break this down into four key areas. First, technology and unintended consequences. Second, policy shifts and soaring costs. Third, the end of driving joy. And finally, reassessing automotive progress. All right, let's start with Section 1, technology and unintended consequences. Okay, consider this absolute nightmare scenario predicted by our source. Imagine a global software breakdown triggered by just one glitchy code update, maybe pushed out by some guy named Kevin at 3 a.m. A routine over-the-air update starts, you get that reassuring little spinning egg timer graphic on your dashboard, and then literally nothing. Thousands of cars are instantly immobilized exactly where they stand on the road. You can't put them in neutral, they're way too heavy to push, and the steering is completely locked. It's total global pandemonium on our streets, and it's all caused by a single digital hiccup. Absolutely wild to think about. Now, what's really interesting here is the philosophical takeaway from that exact kind of tech failure. I mean, when you literally cannot move your own vehicle because of some cloud server error that nobody can properly explain, a pretty harsh reality sets in. The source argues that this is going to be the epochal moment we realize we don't truly own our cars anymore. We are merely guests in them or completely at the mercy of digital masters and mobility malfunctions. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when pristine technology meets messy, everyday reality. The source hilariously predicts that by 2026, autonomous driverless taxis will finally be unleashed in London, and they will be entirely defeated by it. You take a polite algorithm and drop it into 1,000 years of Victorian street layouts, fading road markings, and random temporary traffic cones, and the result? It isn't a futuristic utopia. It's a robot freezing up, apologizing to the cloud, and having a full-blown existential crisis at a four-way junction. But hey, the technological headaches definitely don't stop at software. The creator makes this outlandish yet strangely plausible prediction about physical tech mandatory pollution collectors. To combat particulate emissions, cars are going to sprout what they describe as ungainly cybernetic barnacles right behind the wheels. But here's the kicker. It will actually become the consumer's responsibility to empty these things. You'll literally be taking these canisters into your kitchen, separating toxic brake and tire dust like some part-time hazmat technician. It'll probably be marketed as empowering consumers, but the source predicts it's really just going to lead to massive, widespread illegal dumping. Moving right along, let's get into Section 2, policy shifts and soaring costs. Let's look at the UK's highly debated 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel cars. According to the source, this policy isn't going to end with a dramatic, headline-grabbing reversal or a sudden cancellation. No, instead, it's going to suffer a slow, quiet, bureaucratic fade-out. What was once firmly cast in stone becomes elastic and then merely aspirational. By 2026, just to avoid political embarrassment while desperately trying to save a massive automotive industry, the policy will quietly shift to being quote-unquote under review. It won't technically be canceled, it just won't be enforced. So the crucial point here is that this kind of regulatory landscape has massive ripple effects. The source points out that German performance brands, your AMGs, M-Cars, and RS models, are going to look at the UK market and quietly decide it just isn't worth the hassle anymore. Between the high taxes, the constant rule changes mid-game, and incredibly hostile urban driving policies, these brands won't dramatically pull out. They'll just simply thin out their allocations and look elsewhere. Places like the US, the Middle East, and China will get the cool cars, while the UK is quietly deprioritized by spreadsheet-wielding executives over in Munich and Stuttgart. And for those of you who do manage to keep a car on the road, brace yourselves for a serious reality check. The absolute most expensive part of owning a car will no longer be the purchase price. It won't be the financing, and it won't be the servicing. It is going to be the insurance. Modern cars are packed with so many incredibly delicate sensors, radar systems, and cameras that a minor bumper tap now requires a technician, a laptop, and 3 recalibration updates to fix. The source notes that by 2026, you won't be flashing your horsepower to impress people. You'll be showing off the fact that you can actually afford your insurance premium. This brings us to a rather melancholic Section 3, the end of driving joy. Think about how the very concept of driver engagement is being completely redefined right now. It used to mean steering feedback, right? That seat of the pants, visceral feel of a vehicle. But in 2026, the source argues this will basically be a historical concept from the battle days. Even motoring journalists will allegedly stop actually driving cars on press launches. They'll prefer to be chauffeured around while they evaluate the cup holders, the interface logic, and the overall vibes. Driver engagement will literally be measured by whether your Bluetooth dropped out, rather than how the car actually handles a corner. The source paints this vivid, hilariously dark picture of modern car development to explain the shift. Just imagine a boardroom packed full of accountants and engineers who are entirely obsessed with gesture control and drive-by-wire systems. Then a lone enthusiast speaks up and suggests that maybe, just maybe, they should offer a manual gearbox and hydraulic steering simply because it's fun. Well, according to the creator, that employee is promptly thrown out of a 40-floor window by upper management. Fun, as the source puts it, is difficult to homologate. Therefore, fun will no longer be allowed. Because pure fun is essentially outlawed, the industry has to rely on compromise. And this brings us to an incredible piece of irony regarding hybrids. For years, hybrids were mocked by car enthusiasts as these fence-sitting, indecisive machines, kind of like how old Skoda cars used to be the punchline of every motoring joke. But in 2026, hybrids complete their redemption arc. They're no longer a joke, they are the ultimate savior of the internal combustion engine. They dodge the rules, they keep the politicians happy with transition technology buzzwords, and they allow our beloved petrol engines to survive just a little bit longer. So let's see how this builds into a really fascinating contrast between classic cars and modern vehicles. In the future, classic cars are actually going to feel emotionally safer. Why? Because they offer mechanical truth. They have physical keys you can actually touch. They don't have subscription paywalls walking you out of your own heated seats, and they definitely don't wake up glitchy from an overnight cloud update. Sure, a classic car might have a basic disagreement with you that requires you to grab a spanner, but it won't lull you into a full sense of invincibility with digital driver aids. That raw honesty, it's going to feel incredibly radical in an overly digitized world. And that leads us perfectly into our final segment, Section 4, Reassessing Automotive Progress. The source uses this absolutely brilliant central metaphor to describe the entire automotive sector right now. By constantly over-regulating, overcomplicating, and obsessing over entirely the wrong metrics, the industry isn't confidently accelerating towards some utopian future. Instead, it feels like we are hurtling enthusiastically toward a brick wall, all while holding a highly bureaucratic committee meeting about the exact height, depth, and color of that wall. We are quite literally optimizing our way into absolute submission. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question from the creator. In our relentless pursuit to save the world and optimize every single aspect of transportation, did we simply mistake complexity for intelligence? By making cars so clever, so expensive, and so incredibly delicate, we might just make the act of driving so completely absurd that we stop doing it altogether. It's a fascinating look at the road ahead, and honestly, it certainly makes you want to hold on to your physical car keys while you still can. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.